Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Heal Your Worldview podcast. I'm your host, James Knight, and as always, this podcast is dedicated to tracing out the CPTSD we all got in childhood with your current philosophical worldview and how that trauma influences how you see the world and how it affects the philosophy that you have. Today, I want to talk about something that seems like a confusing topic. And the word I'm going to use is discipline. Now, most people, when they think of discipline, they think of corporal punishment on their kids. But that's not what discipline is. This is more of a Stoic, ancient Greek views on the terms virtue and discipline and courage and all that stuff. I think the Greeks had it right, especially Aristotle. I think Aristotle had these concepts right, and the way he described them and the balancing and all the different things that go with the terms are vital to your mental health and protection. So discipline, as I try to describe it, is the battle between you against you. Because we have the three different parts of our brain, right? We have the lizard brain, we have the animal brain, and then we have the frontal lobe. And these different parts of the brain represent different responsibilities. The lizard brain is fight or flight. That's the one where you just can't help it. Something scares you and you run, or you're watching a scary movie and they do a jump scare and you jump. There's nothing you can do about it. Even when you know the jump scare's coming, you jump anyway. That's the lizard brain. It's no accident, too, that when you get scared, right, when something startles you, like let's say the jump scare happens and it's your buddy and they have pulled a prank on you. First they jump scare you, you scream, they laugh, and then you get angry, right? That's flight and then fight. Okay, that's the responses. And they're baked in. So part of discipline is when you understand that those two things are outside of your control, and depending on your level of preparation is how often you're going to be nailed by the fight or flight mechanism. And when I say preparation, I'm talking about a lot of things. I'm talking about your physical and mental preparation for your personal self, but also your preparation for, the things that come up in life that jump out and get you. A good financial planner will drill into you to have an emergency fund just in case. Whether that's a credit card that you don't use on anything else, or an actual savings account, which is even better because then it's generating interest for you if it's in the right vehicle. That's good advice. And then when something happens, like say your car breaks down and you need the money to fix it, well, you have the emergency fund. You have a plan, so you're not going to be agonizing over the expense. It's going to be annoying because who doesn't get annoyed by unexpected car repairs, etc. But you're not going to be in anguish. You're not going to be in stress. You're not going to be in, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent this month? Because now I got to pick between my rent and my car. Okay. That is a fight or flight response to a financial issue. So fight or flight is not just physical danger, which most people associate it with physical danger. It is physical and emotional danger. Because if you think about it, the brain calculates these things in the background, and most people are intuitively or instinctively processing consequences without realizing they're doing it. The next level for a human mind is to be able to calculate these consequences without actually being in danger. That's called strategy and tactical planning, strategic and tactical planning. So when you can do that, it helps you take another layer of things that you could be nailed by fight or flight off of you. Now, of course, you can't. Now, there's a difference between planning and paranoia. Let's be clear about that one. Paranoia is related to your trauma. That thing where you never feel safe, that's a trauma thing. And a lot of times what happens to people, like let's go back to the car problem. Your car breaks down and let's say you had the type of trauma that makes you paranoid and makes you worry about every little thing to a point where you're almost in an obsessive compulsive loop. That happens because you haven't figured out your trauma and it's running on autopilot. And when your car breaks down, you're faced with, I can't pay my rent and my car. Well, that can trigger an existential crisis if you have the type of trauma that leads you to never feeling safe. one of the key things that I want to try to help people with is get yourself to a place where you actually feel safe because you've done enough planning, whether it be discipline or whatever, to feel confident that no matter what comes at you, you're going to be able to take care of it physically and emotionally. It's very important that you get to that place where there's not much that can surprise you. The only thing that can surprise you at this point is a tornado or a blizzard or whatever. Those things you just can't account for. But, if you do have your supplies in order, I'm not talking about prepper stuff here. I'm just talking about, do you have a box of emergency food in your storage just in case something weird happens? Like, if let's say a blizzard happens and it's that blizzard where you can't get to the store for a week. Well, can you survive a week? Can you survive? Like, you see these poor people with the hurricane nailing them in North Carolina, Georgia, all those states, Florida. Those people had to evacuate their homes if they could. All right. And if you could evacuate your homes, that's great. But if you couldn't, if you were stuck there, what would you do to survive for even a day? Okay. I don't know how many of you out there have experienced going without food for an entire 24-hour stretch while you're out in the wilderness. It is a very uncomfortable feeling. I mean, of course you can survive it, but it is uncomfortable and it distracts you. Now imagine you're in a survival situation where you have no idea when the next meal or even clean water is going to be available to you. So in your emergency preparations, you should have a life straw and a box of emergency food. That's stuff that you can get at Costco, just in case, right? It doesn't hurt anything to have it. And if you don't have it and you need it, it's bad. So anyway, discipline. Let's circle back to discipline. And all these things that I'm talking about are items of discipline where you assume that you are your own worst enemy, okay? And with that assumption, you make strategic and tactical plans to outsmart yourself until you don't need them anymore. Here's a good one. When I was younger, I wasn't present. I was making a lot of mistakes. For example, I used to lock my keys in the car all the time, or I would get home and I would randomly put the keys somewhere. Sometimes in my pocket, I would take my pants off, throw them in the hamper, my keys are in there. And then the next day I'm running late because I have no, my discipline was lacking. And it caused me all kinds of stress that did not need to be there. It did not need to be there in my life. And now that I've figured out those lessons the hard way, after paying a locksmith $300 to come get my keys out of the car because I locked them in there when I was getting gas, stuff like that, I developed strategies and tactics that would allow me to outsmart myself. So, like with the car thing, what I would do is if I would shut the car off, I would make sure the keys are in my hand and I don't put them on the seat, right? Those are the two things where I realized I was causing my problem. So I would not be present with where are my keys and what are the consequences of not having them in my hand. So a lot of times I would leave the key in the ignition. I would get out, I would start pumping gas, and then I would think, oh yeah, I'm going to go in and get something to drink. And then I would lock my door, right? Because it's an automatic thing, right? You're thinking about, oh, I got to lock my door. So you lock your door, and then you come back, your keys are in the car because you either left them in the ignition or you were holding them in your hand and you set them on the seat or the console, whatever. So after, $1,000 worth of locksmithing, I learned how not to do that, right? And that's an item of discipline. The discipline was never let those keys out of your hand until you get out of the car and put them in your pocket. That's one type of discipline. Or when you get home, I mean, how many listening to me are the type that end up, searching the whole house for their keys and they're running late for an appointment, whatever. Well, here is a piece of tactics and a piece of discipline for you. Get yourself a key ring rack and attach it right next to the door. And make sure you put your keys on the peg every time. No, you have to, discipline is making sure you never screw that up. Because if you do, there's the one time where you're going to be late for something and you're going to be stressing out and freaking out. What if it's a job interview? What if it's something important? You don't want to have that hanging over you. So one of the things when you listen to me and what I talk about is how to insulate yourself in a way that lets you just enjoy life. It gets you to the point where you don't have to think about these little things all the time because you don't have discipline. This is a tangent here, but the reason why we conflate discipline with corporal punishment is because the prevailing view of the adults is, well, I'm going to teach my kid consequences, which is going to teach them discipline. And although that might be true, usually it just gives them PTSD. And then they're acting in a state of fear all the time, and it makes it worse, right? The corporal punishment makes it worse because now they're afraid of you and they're afraid of making mistakes. You'll push them into that perfectionist bubble if you don't knock it off. So, discipline. Now, it's an interesting thing as well. What I do for discipline to help me, especially when it's a physical thing, right? Let's say I'm trying to exercise, and last time I did 25 push ups, and today I'm doing the push ups and I'm feeling weak and I'm feeling down. And then what happens is these feelings affect your mental clarity. And what happens first is feel like you're going to just quit. So it makes you want to quit. That is where discipline is vital. That moment you feel like quitting is your key. It's that little tickle that needs to get you mad. Okay. Anger is a excellent motivator. And so our culture has a weird stigma on anger. It's because we don't process our feelings correctly, and anger turns to rage because we didn't communicate with whatever it is that is making us upset, right? Kids will feel anger because something's out of their control. There's nothing they can do. Then they'll act out. So what we don't want to do, we want to channel our anger. It's this kind of dates me a little bit, but in the movie Enter the Dragon, there's this moment when Bruce Lee is having a session with one of his students, and he's talking about emotional content, but not anger. And this is the essence of what I'm talking about on this podcast is the emotional content. So let's go back to the push-ups. Whatever today I didn't sleep well, whatever's going on in my life on that day, and my mind is not on in the right state. When you're exercising and you're in the right state of mind, you don't accept feeling weak. You don't accept all these things that make you stop exercising. And that is one of the chronic things that happens to us through life is we run into these things and we get into the habit of quitting. We don't understand the consequences that this issue of feeling you don't feel good today, so you're just going to quit, how it invades the rest of your life and how it's like a dark cloud over you. And you don't want to have anything in your life that adds to the problems that life presents. Okay. Life's hard enough without being your own worst enemy. So, what we do here on Heal Your Worldview is we make sure you're not your own worst enemy. And that's the point of this one and why I'm going on and on about discipline. Discipline is that moment when let's say you did 25 push-ups last time and today you get to fit. It's like, oh, I just don't feel so good today. And you quit. You quit at 15, but you just didn't feel good, right? For whatever reason. Now, maybe it was right to stop, but what you have to guard against is the next time you do your push-ups or whatever you're doing, cleaning the house, whatever, you only do 15 the next time. And then the next time. And then this happens to you again and you only do 10 and then eventually you stop. Anger is that moment that you need. It's not the moment. Anger is the thing you need to tap to break past that feeling of, I'm just too tired today. I don't want it. Okay. You get mad at yourself, but not in a toxic, abusive way. We're not talking about a negative inner voice. We're just like, come on, you did 25 last time. Let's go. You have to tap your inner drill sergeant. And when you learn how to tap your inner drill sergeant, it really, really affects your life in a very positive way. Because if you've ever been in the military, the drill sergeant is there to push you past where you thought you couldn't go. We're not talking about the abusive type like in Full Metal Jacket. Not that, right? We're just talking about the force of a drill sergeant is such that you cannot not listen to him or her. You are compelled to follow those directions. It's not an option for you to disregard what the drill sergeant is saying to you. I hope that makes sense, right? So you got to put an inner drill sergeant in yourself, but not one that is unrealistic. This is a tight balance here. So your drill sergeant, let's say you're out of shape and you're feeling down and you want to make some changes in your life, and you realize that one easy thing to do is to start working out. And that's true. It's like Jordan Peterson when he talks about cleaning your room. It's that one thing that you actually are in control of, that you dictate to yourself. Will you eat right? Will you exercise? Will you clean your room, etc.? These are not like passive aggressive little barbs that are supposed to make you feel bad. What they're supposed to do is like help you win. Humans, when we win, when we have small victories, they lead to the big victories, especially if you have a self-esteem problem. If you have low self-esteem, you need as many little wins as you can because they build on each other and they're infectious. It's a good thing. But discipline. I can't tell you how many people I've seen that are starting a workout program and then this pathetic look on their face as they're trying to push themselves to exercise. I don't know how many of you also are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink, but in there is a segment that talks about the emotions of your face. And there was a group of researchers that tried to map and figure out, like what they did is they counted all the muscles in your face and they tried to map out every possible permutation of emotion that your face can make. And so it was a team of guys or a team of researchers. I don't know if there was men and women or both, whatever. It's not the point. The point is they then tried to practice each emotion. So they separated the list and they were all practicing and they were all trying to get good at certain emotions without feeling the emotion. This is when the weird stuff happened. So what dawned on them, what they realized is when they were practicing the negative facial expressions, they would actually feel the effect as if they were feeling negative emotions. This is super counterintuitive, right? Most people think you feel an emotion and your face makes an expression, but you can also go the other way. So, you know, those people that talk about smile, smile, smile? Well, it turns out there's some truth to that. And or the love crew that says, you know, it's all about love, blah blah blah. And I'm not that guy, but I get what they are talking about. If you are in the mindset of love, or if you are, you know, if your face has got a bad expression on it, it's going to affect your mental clarity. So when they say all you need is love, it is an oversimplified version of the way you approach a thing is a big deal. What I say is all you need is clarity. All you need is clarity. You just need to see things as they are, not how you want to be. And the first step is discipline. Okay. The first step is figuring out how to make yourself do what you don't want to do, especially the things that you know you have to, you know, take the trash out, that kind of stuff. Do the dishes. All those little things, they stack up on you. And eventually you get overwhelmed because you have been neglecting all these little things. And now you are forced to deal with them at an inconvenient moment in your week. So discipline. Let's recap and leave it here. But when you think of discipline, don't think of it as, you know, you have to discipline somebody else. Discipline is about you. Discipline is you against you. And the sooner you learn that, the better your life gets. There is a reason why people that are athletes from a young age or musicians from a young age or whatever it is, where you have to practice again and again and again, those people that become shining stars when we get to adulthood because they've been doing it for 20 years, well, that was discipline that got them there. That moment when they had to go practice whatever they had to practice and they didn't want to do it. And they're just wired that way that they fight through, they grind through and get it done. And eventually they get to the top of the list, the top of the heap, cream of the crop, whatever. And that's why those people tend to be more successful in life. Now, it's not a guarantee. And it's not a guarantee that people that don't do stuff like that don't figure it out, because they do, obviously. But it's a reminder that things that you try to do in the physical space helps to prime you for emotional discipline, intellectual discipline. And we're going to get there. This entire podcast is helping you to get to this place where nothing can throw you off. Or if you do get thrown off, you recover really fast because you're back to a place of steady state. So discipline. Discipline is something we all need to be aware of. It's all something that we need to take very seriously. And because this is the starting point of making your life better, right? How do you pursue happiness? Well, make sure you're not pursuing all kinds of nonsense that prevent you from getting to your happiness. So I hope that you found this episode useful. And if you did, if you could like and possibly subscribe, I would appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you on the next one, and have a great day.